Okay, so now that episode 14 is out of the way, oh man, just this episode and pretty much the rest of the season is just holy crap. Yeah. Okay, so this is episode 15, Understanding Willow. I think it's because coming off of that last episode, when I saw this one, the first time I saw it, wow, this episode goes pretty deep, like literally deep into a lot of things. Okay, so where do we start? Well, let's start at the beginning, I guess. So, so it's pretty much Willow and Amity's friendship that's the main focus of this episode, and yeah, so it starts with there's a few things. There's obviously a funny joke. There's a funny moment with some little kids fighting over Scar's invitation for her party, and like teachers come in and they're like, "Can't fight, can't fight, can't fight." Yeah, where's Gunkle Stan with the camera when you need it, right? um, so well, they drop a little moment in there with Amity with her friends, and like Scara says, "Hey, Amity, weren't you friends with Willow when you once?" And Amity kind of brushes it off, saying, "I'm a blight. We only associate ourselves with the elite." And she's like, and then she drops this line. She says, "Keep annoying me though. I'm happy to select fewer." Or yeah, actually, yeah, no, that was yeah. We only associate ourselves with the select few. Keep annoying me though. I'm happy to select fewer. I'm like, dang, that's a good line. But Willow kind of brushes it off because, there's obviously something there, and Luce being Luce, she really wants to figure out what that was because, she knows that she's friends with Amity now and she's friends with Willow, and so she feels like she can kind of fix it, but yeah, so they go to photo class, and I'll say it's a pretty clever photo class because what they do is you're not using a camera, you literally have like these not tweezers or pinchers, I guess, and you literally are able to reach into someone's brain through the ear and pull out an actual memory in the form of a photo. And so Luce does that with Willow, and most of them are just her when she was a kid. We do get confirmation though that she has two dads in this episode. There's a photo with her with her dads. That's a pretty cool thing. We don't get to meet him in this season, which I imagine that won't be this problem for long. I imagine in season 2 we'll meet them. I mean, they definitely look like a pretty cool couple, and I imagine Willow really loves them, and just I imagine Luce is gonna love them as well. Like I said, they're gonna be fun. I hope they're well. Dana and the crew, I imagine, will make sure they're fun people. So, out of all the memories, though, there's one that sticks out to Luce, and that's a photo of Amity with Willow, and it's a pretty cool one. It's Amity like literally hugging Willow, and Luce kind of finds it interesting, but then Willow kind of brushes it off, and then Willow then kind of turns the picture away and says, out of sight, out of mind. But Luce, of course, is, she wants to try and help, but then Willow's like, no, just don't do it. Don't try anything. Don't try anything funny, clever, or anything. And but Luce is like, okay. Well, she didn't say shenanigans, so she basically just takes the photo and turns it back forward. But the teacher, of course, talks about how the photos are delicate. And she says any damage to the photo can damage a memory, and so of course when you bring something like that up, you imagine something could go wrong, and it goes wrong in the form of Amity walking by with the door open, and she sees the photo of Willow and her. I mean, maybe from a glance I could probably see it. Maybe I don't know. She sees the photo, and so she freaks out, and she goes up to it and she casts a fire spell to burn. She starts by burning her face on the photo. So like it's just Willow being hugged by some random kid. But then the photo catches on fire, and then Amity tries to put it out, but then the fire catches onto all the other photos, and she's like, "Come on!" And so since the photos damage a person's memory, Willow's brain goes kaput. It's interesting because at first she's like she doesn't remember Luce and Gus, but then it gets worse and worse, and eventually Willow just doesn't know crap, and she kind of acts drunk too, which I really found funny. I mean, it's moments like that where you can be like, well, yeah, her memory's fine, but it's like on the other side, it's like, oh no, she's wasted. So of course, with that problem, Luce and Amity, and Luce, Gus, and Amity have to figure out what to do. So they go to eat at the Owl House. Amity's first time in the Owl House, as they acknowledge. Amity's like, so you sleep here? And then Luce is like, when the night critters allow me. So Ida basically tells them that the only way to fix Willow's memories is to actually go into Willow's head to fix them manually, basically. And so Luce gets excited because she's always, because it's that concept of going into someone's head. You're like, oh yeah, we've seen it. I mean, I've seen it a few times, but this is a really creative idea because usually when you go into someone's head, it's usually to help fix them with something. But this one, it's like her memory's toast, so it's like you actually need to do it. And so Edith says only 2 people can go in, so Gus can't do it because Gus has to work. Gus is trying to do a project for an interview. He has to figure out who to interview for a journalism project. I've been there. I've been there. I've definitely had a day where I'm like, I had no idea who to interview for a story because pretty much like Gus listed like who's done who's interesting, who has accomplished something, and who. Just all of that. But so he's occupied with that, so Luce basically has to go to Amity, and at first Amity kind of doesn't want to do it because she's like, Willow probably wouldn't want me in there, but Luce is like, you set everything in there on fire. So Amity of course gives in, and just Edith's so sinister with Amity too. She's like, yep, whoever was responsible for this was careless and downright despicable. Oh wait, yeah, it was you. and then Amity agrees, and then Edith's like, oh, okay, interesting, taking the person who was responsible for this whole thing. So she sends them inside with this bell to like signal. So that's the signal to get out of there, so Edith can bring them back. But so Luce and Amity go inside, and it's a pretty straightforward depiction of one's head. Like it's a forest with like these kind of brain-like trees, and of course each tree has a picture frame of a memory, and that's pretty cool. Some of them, however, aren't bright and colorful, they're damaged, and so Luce then discovers that you can actually go into a memory, so they jump into one of Willow's memories, and Amity realizes what the memory is. It's that her and Willow when they were kids. It's them making a fort, and then the fort's damaged, so then they repair the fort, and then they find out that fixes the memory. Like they get shot back out, and they see that the memory's all clean and bright. And so Amity, basically, part of this episode is Amity just recalling all the moments that she had with Luce when they're Luce. I keep saying Luce. Ugh. The moments that she had with Willow when they were younger, and just the fact that they were really close and that they were best friends. And so Luce obviously gets more and more suspicious with this, but as they continue fixing memories, and everything seems to be nice and dandy. And so eventually though, it all comes down to one photo that Amity Luce wanted to do right after they fixed the fort memory, but Amity kind of sidetracked Luce, saying, hey, what about this one? I think this one's about her crush that Willow had, and just just to keep Luce distracted. And then even when it's the last one they had to fix, Amity's like, okay, time to go. So Luce, obviously it's a pretty traumatic memory that Amity doesn't want to revisit, but Luce is like, we have to fix all of them, because the thing is, you can't, yada yada. We have to do this. We have to fix this. We have to, all this. You can't avoid this. And then Amity kind of snaps at Luce for some other, for like saying like, you're the one who's trying to get involved into our lives and try to fix our problems and stuff. And it's like, okay, but then, they discover they're not alone in the in Willow's head, because there's this fire spirit that's also in there, and yeah, the fire spirit is it's pretty creepy. So it's this giant pink fire spirit that runs around Willow's head and just burns the memories, basically goes in each one and just burns it. And then at first they're like, it's destroying all of her memories, but then they realize it only destroys the memories that's of Amity, and Luce is like, it's after you. And then the fire spirit sees Amity and starts chasing them. So then they go into one of oh wait, I forgot. Like when the fire spirit, they avoid the fire spirit and it jumps into one of the memories, and so Luce or Amity's like, ring the bell, get us out of here, I don't want. And so Luce rings the bell, but then on the outside Ida's not paying attention, because Ida is competing with King to try and get the interview with Gus, because Gus was like freaking out, like, who do I interview? And Ida at first is like, why don't you interview me? I mean, I'm public enemy #1. I'm the most terrifying. I'm the most powerful witch on the Boiling Isles, and I live in a secret house, in a secret magical house. And it's like, yeah, that's true. And then King's just like, hey, if you want anyone interesting, it's me. And it's like, all right, competition, and it's pretty straightforward. It's Gus being Gus and King and Ida being King and Ida. So yeah, but of course they're distracted by that, so they don't get Amity and Luce out of there. And even like Luce is like, yeah, Ida can be very unreliable at sometimes. So basically they have to deal with the fire spirit themselves. And so after the fire spirit sees Amity, Luce pulls her into the fort memory, because they're on the beach. And so Luce makes a giant ice cliff, and so right as the fire spirit jumps into the memory, Luce activates it, and so the ice pillar comes up, and so as the fire spirit dives in, slides off the pillar and goes into the water, because fire and water. And so Luce is like, yeah, we did it. He hugs Amity. Amity like blushes in awkwardness, but then they see what the fire spirit is, and they find out that it's actually the inner Willow. And so it's the like the inner Willow said, she used to feel all the emotions, but when Amity burned the memories, all she felt was anger, hence why she has fire. And so Amity basically is asking why Willow is doing it, and so inner Willow is like, you still haven't figured it out yet? And I'm like, yeah, you kind of had to figure what it kind of is. So the inner Willow then takes them to the memory that Amity's been avoiding, and we see what happens. And the memory is of Amity and Willow having a fight. Well, I mean, it's really just Amity telling Willow when they were kids to leave during her birthday party, and Willow's really confused, but Amity and Willow's like, is it because I can't do magic? I promise, I know I'm not great, but I'm trying. And then Amity's like, yeah, you know what, that's the reason. And so, Amity tells Willow to leave, and just, there's this really cool shot where you see, so like you have Amity and the inner Willow standing behind their kid selves, and then after Amity tells young Willow to leave, they cut to the young Amity's face, and it dissolves to reveal, and then it shows Amity's actual, like the older Amity's face, and then they cut to the little Willow's face, and then they cut to the inner Willow's face. It's moments like that are just, they're simple, but they're so good when they pull it off. And so, Willow's like, inner Willow is very angry and such, and then she says like, out of sight, out of mind, because she wants to burn Amity. But then Amity stops her by explaining to her why she did it, and we see a memory of Amity, or at least I guess Amity just kind of is able to project her memory in Willow's head. It's never explained, but again, it's really well done. It's like it's very simple, but so they open up, so a door opens up, and you hear a man's voice, and it's very strict, very tone, and it's little Amity. It's little Amity when she was a kid, and so what I like this, it's a black and white background, but the little Amity's in full color, but then on the wall behind her are the shadows of her parents. And if anyone who's seen Gravity Falls all the way through, you can probably guess why what went down with Amity. So you know, like her parents are asking why Willow was at her birthday party. She wasn't on the guest list, but then little Amity's like, she's my best friend, you know, and like her father's like, nonsense. You can pick one of the kids that we invited, and it's like, so it's Basha and Skara, and so Amity's like, but they're mean. You know, just because you work with their parents doesn't mean I need to like them. And then her mother says, good children don't squabble. Okay. But then they take it a step further by saying you have to end your friendship with Willow, or else we will. And to boot, we will make sure she never gets in the hex side. It's like, God, they're just terrible. I mean, wow. So, I mean, I can't wait for Luce to meet them. I'd like to see what she does. I even, like, I did a fanfic with Amity and Luce going to the movies, and I have a scene with Amity like with their parents, and I don't even have, and that's I think someone said it was like for 20 seconds, even though I don't know how long. Like I really just wrote a few sentences of her parents, and it's like I just pretty much made them that sinister, and it's just like, man, it's easy because that's all we know of Amity's parents right now. So, yeah. So Amity basically reveals to Willow that the reason why she ended her friendship with her is because if she didn't, her parents would have made sure Willow not ever gotten to Hexside. But then Amity says, you weren't. It was like Willow, you weren't strong enough to be. No, it's like, oh man, what was it? It was like, oh yeah, Willow, you were never too weak to be my friend. I was too weak to be yours. And so Amity basically, confesses to that and says, I promise though, I'll make sure Basha and Scar and her friends never make fun of you again. And so, you know, and so the two make amends, and dang it, I'll say it this time. When I saw it, I mean, I feel like every time, the more and more I see the scene of Amity and Luce with the inner Willow, and then and then the kid inner Willow shows up, and just seeing them together, and it's just, and the music too, it just makes it gets me. It's a somber moment. It's and then the moment's kind of broken when Luce gives like a awkward cry, like this ugly cry. It's like, it's weird. So then basically they fix all the memories, and they fix Amity, and so Amity and Willow's relationship for now is pretty, it's fixed, but they're not friends again just yet. They are still building that process back up. And then so then Ida and King on the outside are like, which one of us got the interview? And Gus is like, it was hard, but I decided on Hootie. and even me was like, wait, freaking Hootie, really? So then, and then he's like, well, who can create such interesting people? Only the Owl House itself. But honestly, I think Gus got off easy compared to what Ida and King would have done, because he's like, because Ida's mad at Hootie. He's like, I'll bake that door into a pie, and then King's like, I'll bake that kid into a pie, and then they then hear the bell, and Ida's like, oh yeah, I put people in there, didn't I? So she gets them out of Willow's head, And Luce and Amity look around like, what the heck happened here? And then they're like, where's Gus? And then Ida's like, kid's fine. He's just dead to us. And Luce acknowledges like, those are some pretty mixed messages there. And so while Willow wakes up and her memories are back, and Luce comes to hug her, and while she's hugging Willow, Amity tries to walk out, but then Willow like says, hey, I remember. I know what you did in here. I can't say we're friends yet, but it's a start. So it's like it's nice. It's a nice scene, and so Amity then leaves, and like we get this cool shot of Amity just like so she had her invitation to Scar's party, but then and it's a butterfly too. It's yeah, that's weird, but she lets it fly away, and then basically signaling that she's not gonna go and that she's gonna let her friends go in a way. And then there's also a fun bit with Gus and Hootie. Like Hootie's like Gus is writing on a notepad, and Hootie's like, my first word was hoot, my second word was hoot hoot, and then he even starts singing a song. Like it's not. I can't really recreate the song because all I'm thinking of is like Hootie's version of Old MacDonald Had a Farm, and I just go like, here hoot, there hoot, hootie hootie hoot hoot. But yeah. So like I said, I really loved it. I really like this episode. It's inventive. It tackles a pretty big moment for Amity, and because we finally get to see why she acts the way she acts, and freaking parents, man, gotta those parents. But yeah, so it's a really cool episode. And yeah, is there anything else I need to talk about here? I guess not. No. Yeah. All right.